it's against the clock, and as we see, Freuler there finishing, going into the lead actually with a very, very good time.
Yes, 10:28. As we look at the leader of the Panasonic team, the Australian Phil Anderson. Now, he's one of the great daredevils on a bicycle.
Yes, we remember Anderson going down into Clonmel last year in the Nissan, where he took off and took all sorts of risks, and certainly he would be one of the favourites to win and be looking forward to this time trial. Normally he doesn't look forward to time trials, Anderson, but this one he probably will.
Pagnin, Roberto Pagnin, he was very prominent recently in the Tour of Spain, won a couple of stages there, wore the yellow jersey, rode in the Olympics in 1984, and he'll be good downhill here on the Poggio as well. He'll be expecting a good time to get him up in the top 5 or 6. Just a reminder of this morning's, the first leg of this double day. Brookink, the winner, Phil Anderson was second, Robert Miller third, and Stephen Roche was fourth. And here's the world champion, Moreno Argentine of Italy.
Argentine we saw also in the Tour of Spain, but in actual fact he only rode the first 10 days of the Tour of Spain and then pulled out solely for the purpose of preparing for the Tour of Italy. He didn't want to do too much in the Tour of Spain, so he's obviously hoping to do well in this Tour of Italy.
The Italians, setting up the Giro every year, Pat, seem to love time trials and sprint finishes, perhaps to suit their own men.
Oh, they do, yeah. They've got good time trialists and good sprinters, Bontempi and so forth, and now we're looking at Roche on the start line.
Stephen Roche, surprisingly, not wearing a crash helmet.
No, he obviously he doesn't feel that it's all that necessary. We see some of them like Anderson wearing the pear-shaped helmets, but Roche feels that speed isn't going to be the important element today. It's probably staying upright and getting around the corners with losing the minimum of time.
Yeah, well, at least it's dry today as we look at Pop, an Austrian with the Swiss team finishing and putting himself into second place on the Poggio, 10:33. And now Roberto Pagnin, watch the time going through there. 10:28 is the lead so far, and now Pagnin has gone second to Freuler. It's all happening on the Poggio.
Yes, we're with Roche now on the descent. Roche not taking any risks, but good time trialists, and obviously will be up there in the placings.
Let's see how the world champion, wearing the world champion's rainbow jersey does, number 71, Moreno Argentine. He certainly won't be the leader. If he's in the top 10, he is in the top 10. He's in 7th place. 7th place then for Moreno Argentine. One of the world's greatest sprinters, perhaps the greatest sprinter, but how is he as a TT man, Bontempi? Meantime, here's Phil Anderson finishing. He's not going to be the winner downhill either, but it's going to be a very good time. In fact, it puts him second. And here's the man who won it last year, Pat.
Visentini, and at the moment Visentini and Roche, both in the same team, are very much having a battle between them. There's a psychological warfare going on as to who is going to lead this Carrera team in the Tour of Italy. Visentini has started off very well by winning the prologue and establishing his position. Roche is up there and is very keen to establish the position in the early days of the race so that he can get the full support of the team. I don't think it's really going to be finished even today. I think it's going to take the best part of a week or so.
In the inset picture is Eric Brookink, the man who won uphill this morning. So both he and Visentini are on the Poggio at the moment. And whilst we're looking at these, the Italian director, unfortunately, has missed Stephen Roche finishing. And Stephen Roche has finished in a time of 10 minutes 18. And Pat, he is the leader on the Poggio. How about that?
Amazing, really, and surprising. We know Roche is a great time trialist, one of the greatest in the world in actual fact, but really I wasn't expecting him to put up such a fine performance on a tricky descent such as this. Normally in a straight time trial out and back, or even a mountain hilly time trial, Roche can be up there with the best of them. But going down the hills, well, that wouldn't be usually thought of as one of Roche's fortes. And obviously he has done the best, he's done his best, and has produced a very good ride. So it's a great start for Roche.
So that's a bonus day certainly for Stephen.
Oh, it certainly is, yeah. Now let's just wait now and see the last couple of riders down the hill, and see certainly not going to lose much time anyway today.
Brookink here, Eric Brookink is a 23-year-old Dutchman from the Panasonic team. That's Phil Anderson's team, if we may call it thus, because Phil is the leader of that team. He's in the inset picture. Visentini, the 30-year-old Italian, is the man here who won, of course, as we said, the Giro d'Italia last year. Meantime, we're back to the pole. Piasecki, Lech Piasecki, finishing here, and he's very quick. Where will he be? Second. Stephen Roche still holding on, 10:18. Time trialist down the Poggio, he's only 7th best today. Guido Bontempi. And number 1 is Roberto Visentini from the Carrera team. As Pat McQuaid has said, he would be the leader perhaps of that team. We'll find out what happens during the Giro, whether he or Stephen will lead the team and who'll be defended. 1, 3, 4 here is Brookink. What a great morning he had and what a body shape. Yes, really looking tremendously fit. So, these are the two now on the Poggio. Stephen Roche's time, remember, is 10:18. And that really is a brilliant time. Will it survive?
Hopefully it will, but let's just think of the strength and depth which that Carrera team has. They've Roche and Visentini both capable of winning the Tour of Italy. They've Bontempi there, who did a very good time trial, and also will be winning several stages of the Tour of Italy when it comes to a sprint.
And then, of course, there's the team time trial to come, and Carrera have a magic team in that.
They have indeed. They won the team time trial in the Paris-Nice early on this year.
Lang finishing. 15th place, so no danger from him. Only 15th best down the Poggio for the Olympic silver medalist of 1984, Steve Bauer of Canada. Visentini again, a 30-year-old. As Pat said, he hasn't won a race since the Giro of last year. In fact, he didn't race all that much in 1986 afterward.
No, regarded very much in Italy as a playboy, and doesn't usually take such a heavy program as the likes of Roche and Kelly would take, but still very, very class, a lot of class, very classy rider, and very capable of winning this Tour of Italy. Approaching the finish now, Visentini, and we're watching the time closely. He's not going to beat Roche.
No, Stephen survives that one. Stephen Roche, 10:18. Visentini in 4th place on the descent. Oh, and that leaves just one. Eric Brookink, the Dutchman. So Stephen Roche's descent. Surprised Pat that it was so quick. We know he's a good time trialist, but really dangerous with that almost scalextric bends down the Poggio.
Yes, as I said earlier, normally Roche would like to find his rhythm and like a nice steady roads and fairly flat roads, but the Poggio doesn't allow you to do that because you're braking and going around the bends. And it's surprising, but a very, very good performance of Roche.
Now we can count it down, and he's going to survive, because there's no way Brookink is going to beat a time of 10:18. Anyway, we'll count him in. Stephen Roche on the descent of the Poggio is in the afternoon in San Remo, that's for sure, and that will be confirmed on the computer readout in a moment or two. Brookink finishes 3rd on the downhill. Upcoming now, the result of that descent. There you see Stephen 10:18, Piasecki at 4 seconds, Brookink at 7, Rominger at 8, and Visentini defending his Giro on the same time, 8. So, a great day in San Remo in the Giro d'Italia for Stephen Roche, really proving himself and moving to 2nd on the overall general classification. And there it is, Brookink in the pink jersey of leader, Stephen Roche at 14 seconds as 2nd, Piasecki at 21 seconds as 3rd, and the defending champion Visentini is 4th.
Roberto Visentini, who has just ridden the Tour of Spain, so would be in very good form going into this Tour of Italy.
Siamo proprio al limite e ora vedremo in questo finale che è in salita. Abbiamo visto prima che la corsa ha costeggiato la superstrada che porta a Benevento, una specie di bretella fra l'autostrada del Sole Roma-Napoli e l'autostrada invece che da Napoli porta verso Bari, una
So Stephen Roche,
che
still in the pink jersey of race leader, needs to keep a close eye. What will have to happen now, the Carreras in the main bunch will have to chase and make sure that this group does not go any more than 1 minute clear, because that would very much endanger Roche's lead.
Si lascia Benevento con 6 uomini in fuga: Chevalier, Massi, Pieters, Talen, Pagnin e Bogers, che sono appena rientrati.
As we're watching the bunch now, we're looking out for the pink jersey of Stephen Roche, like Peters of the Hunvet team, John Talon of the Panasonic team, a young Dutch rider, finished silver medalist in the World Amateur Championships last year and turned pro immediately afterwards for Panasonic. And this Adolfo Massi, another new pro, and back with Roberto Visentini, still driving this break on. He the one with most to gain if this break stays away. Adolfo Massi A new pro, as I say, just turned professional this year. John Talon, one of the bright stars of Dutch cycling, and is certainly a name to watch out for in the future. Panasonic rider, one of the riders that Panasonic are laying a lot of faith in this year to develop as a very good professional, and hopefully within a year or two will be one of the top riders in the world. That's John Talon of the Panasonic team. They're now approaching this drag up to the finish. It's about, not very steep, but gradually climbs over the last 5 or 6 miles up to San Giorgio del Sannio. Back with the main bunch now. We're looking out for that pink jersey of Stephen Roche. Carrera riders well to the front. Massi looking over to Talon to share the work with him. He looks back to see what's happening behind, to see the 4 riders that they've just left. And obviously they're weakening. This looks good actually for Stephen Roche, because Pagnin obviously hasn't got the strength to go forwards, and it means he may be weakening, which means that on the final climb up to the finish he could actually be caught. But these 2 riders going for home. 108 there, confirmation there, Massi, and 136, John Talon. Massi attacking now at the front, driving on, but Talon responding immediately. But Massi obviously feeling strong and looking for a stage win, which for a new pro in Italy would be a super achievement in his first year as a pro, to win a stage of the Tour of Italy. On the lower slopes, yes, looking back there, we see Bogers has been sus. Pagnin and Chevalier now closing up to the 2 leaders. Still, the bunch not too far behind. We were reminded of Liège-Bastogne-Liège when 2 leaders, Stephen Roche and Claude Criquillon, in the last couple of kilometers, messed around and foxed around and watched each other, and the bunch actually closed up on them. Or rather, a chasing group with Moreno Argentine closed up, and Argentine won the race. So these 2 riders, and Pagnin and Chevalier, if and when they get up to them, certainly have not got time to fool around. And Massi realizes this and is attacking again from the leaders. Massi obviously feeling strong and having another go. He knows that the 2 chasers are just behind. He knows the bunch are not far behind, and if he wants to win this stage, he's got to drive on. Talon responding, so Massi and Talon looking back, see where Pagnin and Chevalier are. We get an idea now of the 2 chasers. Still 10 or 12 seconds in it. Pagnin and Chevalier not giving up. They're still clear, and Pagnin could improve his overall position here today. He's in 4th place overall, 1 minute 22 seconds behind Roche. But just in front of him is Eric Breukink, who did lead the race early on in the first day, but he's only 10 seconds in front of Pagnin, so Pagnin could actually move up into 3rd place. As we look up at the banner into the last kilometre, Talon leading Massi, Pagnin and Chevalier chasing, about 6 seconds behind, and only another 6 or 7 seconds behind them is the main field. And in that main field we'll have Moreno Argentine, who has already won 2 stages in this race, as they just go into the town of San Giorgio del Sannio, into the last kilometre. Talon leading into the last kilometre with Massi. And there's the main bunch. The Carrera's at the front, obviously riding for their sprinter Guido Bontempi, who unusually hasn't shown up. He won 5 stages in this race last year, but hasn't been involved in any of the sprint finishes yet this year. Now we've got 4 riders in front. Pagnin and Chevalier have got up to the 2 leaders. We've got Pagnin, Chevalier, Talon and Massi, but the bunch closing in on them rapidly. The domestics, or the teammates now of Stephen Roche, and indeed Moreno Argentine and Phil Anderson, they're the riders doing the riding now to get that bunch up, and they're just going to close up with 600 meters to go. The 4 leaders are caught, and we're down to a bunch finish. This mass sprint finish now should be very exciting. As they come into the finishing straight, it's all together.
Ripresi, quindi altro volatone, a ranghi compatti, abbiamo detto un finale.
Argentina is there, Skoda's there, Van de Velde is there, Pop is there. Rosallo, Bontempi. And it looks like Rosallo leading out, and Rosallo takes the stage from Guido Bontempi with Alaccio third and Baffi fourth. Paolo Rosali of the Bianchi team there winning the stage, and we see another slow motion replay. We see Rosali on the right of the screen, leading out Bontempi with the white hat in the center of the screen, taking second place, and Stefano Alacci taking third. Stephen Roche finished well in that main bunch, and as we look at Guido Bontempi, obviously had been in the wars, and maybe that's the reason why he couldn't win the stage. Stephen Roche in the pink jersey of race leader. As we look at the stage placings, Rosallo, confirmation that he won, Bontempi second, Alaccio third. Italy second at 32 seconds, Eric Breukink of the Netherlands third at 1 minute 10 seconds, and Roberto Pagnin of Italy fourth at 1 minute. Stage, and we're into the final kilometre, and the whole bunch are together. The riders are up at the front, jostling around. We see the Atala team, 4 members of the Atala team there, obviously leading out for their teammate Urs Freuler, who should be expected to finish well up on the stage. The Carreras are there, Bontempi is there, who should also be expected to do well. We see now one of the Atala riders moved over there, his teammate moved up, Bontempi jostling with Freuler, and suddenly one rider is down, and then the domino effect, and we have a dramatic crash. Huge numbers down in that, definitely. And back with the finish now, it looks like Paolo Rosali winning from Urs Freuler in second place. And now we may see a slow motion of that crash. We see rider to look out for is Bontempi, who in the white jersey, dark hair, in the middle of, just at the bottom of the screen there. He's moving from left to right. We see the Atala riders on the right. Calcaterra, Morandi just moved over there to allow Freuler to come through. Calcaterra's leading out on the right. Freuler's behind them. Bontempi is on his left. We see Bontempi just rubbing shoulders now with Freuler. Leans over, tries to then compensate, lean over to the other side. Doesn't regain his balance, and down he goes. So obviously the domino effect of riders travelling at up to 40-45 mile an hour coming up to the finish, they just don't have time to avoid it, and suddenly we've an enormous crowd down, and we can just pick out there the pink jersey of Stephen Roche right in the middle of that melee, he stood up trying to sort out his bike and get going again. Even though Roche did not fall in the crash, he was involved in it. A rider did run into him from behind, and he gave him a problem which was going to cause him a lot of problems over the next couple of days. On to Tuesday stage, 245 kilometres from Giro Vanova to Osimo, and we've got 5 riders clear on the final run up to the finish. Robert Forrest of the Fager team there just breaking clear, coming into the kilometre banner and going ahead and going to take this stage on his own. This final run up to the finish was to cause Stephen Roche quite a lot of problems, and in actual fact he lost 7 seconds to his teammate Roberto Visentini. Been waiting for the time trial stage, 45 kilometers from Rimini to San Marino. This was to be the day that the decision was to be taken as to who would lead this Carrera team into the final stages, and we're with Roberto Visentini here now. We see on the screen there Rominger has the fastest time so far, 1:12:50. Visentini now into the last kilometer and is with very, very fast time, 1 hour 11 minutes. We're seeing Robert Miller here in the green jersey finishing with a very, very good time, 1:14. Rominger still in the lead. But the Italian crowd have been told that Visentini is leading, and Visentini, after only 10 kilometers, was 15 seconds up on Stephen Roche. So Visentini doing a very good ride here, and the Italians know that he's well up on Roche, and they're going absolutely delirious. Visentini there, look at the time he's doing, He's going to beat Rominger, who's leading up to now by over a minute in actual fact. And now we're with Stephen Roche, and obviously a suffering Stephen Roche, obviously in pain. He cannot find his rhythm. He's up, out of the saddle, into the saddle, out again. The race organizer, Toriano, in the car there, trying to control the crowds. Roche in and out of the saddle, not doing, obviously he's well down on Visentini's time even at now into the last kilometre. We see his time there, 1 hour 13 minutes. Visentini has already finished in a 1:11:39, so Stephen Roche is going to lose his pink jersey of race leadership of the Giro d'Italia today. Roche just now coming up to the finishing line, very weary and obviously knowing the situation, very dejected. And there we have the new race leader, Roberto Visentini.
So Stephen Roche surrendering the lead after 11 days in the pink jersey. His teammate and last year's winner, Visentini, taking over top spot, 2 minutes and 42 seconds ahead of second place Roche. Then came Swiss rider Tony Rominger, 3:12 down. Eric Brücknick of Holland, fourth in 3:30, with Robert Miller fifth, almost 5 minutes behind Visentini. So to yesterday's 14th stage, we pick it up again in the last hour with Pat McQuaid again.
And so to Friday's stage, 255 kilometres, or 155 mile in actual fact, the longest stage of the Tour of Italy, from San Marino to Lido di Jesolo. Panasonic's also well to the front. Phil Anderson is there. Luberding is there also. Shot there, we see Visentini in the pink jersey, the race leader, well to the front of the bunch. Comfort. Sprint now, coming up now, and bunch all together. Carrera's out there at the front. Bontempi is there. Paolo Rossallo is there, winner of several stages in this event so far. Coming into the finishing straight now. Riders now launching themselves on this final sprint of this 14th stage of the Tour of Italy. We can see the purple jersey of Paolo Rossallo, the points leader, the points jersey there, leading out in the middle of the bunch. And on his right, watch on his right, we've got Paolo Cimini of the Rimac team coming through. Cimini just edges out Rossallo there in the final sprint. You see now the slow motion there, Rossallo in the purple jersey leading out there. On the extreme right, we've got Cimini coming through, Rossallo in the center. Cimini on the right just edges him out, pushes the bike over the final line. You can see it there now, see him there pushing his bike onto the line and just wins there by half a length from Paolo Rossallo. Visentini still in the pink jersey of race leader, no change in the overall position today. And a delighted Paolo Cimini there of the Rimac team there, waving to the crowd.
A newsworthy day in Giro history, because the great Visentini was out the back, struggling, maybe not physically, but mentally I think he'd blown it.
Certainly, Stevens had said that he wasn't finished after the time trial. He said this race is still 10 days to go, and he still had, I think he showed the character and showed the resilience and showed what really makes him now definitely one of the top professionals in the world. And he controlled the race that day and went with all the leading moves, and Visentini obviously wasn't able to go with the leading moves.
In fact, it's also noteworthy there's none of the Carrera teammates of Visentini back with him. Earlier on, he was talking to his team car. In fact, we might be able to slot in an insert of that just to show you that moment when he talked to his director sportive. But it's interesting, Pat, that none of his teammates came back to help him. That wasn't obvious. And Roche said that he was trying to control the race, and you've got to take his word for it. Now, that's to what I was referring. Now, at this stage, what would the plan have been? What do you think?
Visentini was obviously saying to his team car, he's not feeling good. The speed is on. There's a lot of racing going on. He's not feeling good. To see a pink jersey or see a race leader at the back of a big group like that obviously shows signs of trouble.
Yeah, so whilst Roche went with the brake and began to control the race, Visentini, so to speak, went the other way, out the back, and relations from that moment were indeed strained, to put it mildly. Anyway, Visentini, look at that. That is, at this moment, I'm sure he's thinking it's time to get off the bike.
He is very, very nearly. I mean, psychologically he is cracked, and physically he certainly looks in trouble.
Meantime, a little moment of glory for Johan van der Velde, number 86. He is the Dutchman in an Italian team, and he's about to go on into the finish in Sappada. He's in the last kilometre. The stage on the Saturday from Lido de Jesolo to Sappada, and Johan van der Velde is going to be the stage winner. But he'll get scant coverage for that particular stage win, because the big story on the day and the days to follow will be the rivalry between Roche and Visentini.
Oh, that's true. We see Van der Velde here finishing. Roche at this stage is in the third group. There's another group with Robert Miller, which finishes about a minute and a half behind Van der Velde, and then Roche comes in soon after that.
Yes, a very good stage win for Johan van der Velde. Now, you'll see the green, which in the Tour of Italy denotes mountain leadership, unlike the Tour de France where it's points leader. And you'll see a green sneaking in just behind those, going now into a new gear. That's Robert Miller. What a good tour he's had.
Robert Miller's had a marvellous tour, and it's great to see him back up there with the top men. He took some time out of Roche here, only about 20 or 30 seconds, but it was significant because at that stage and with so many mountains to go, Roche couldn't afford to give him much leeway.
Now here's Roche. He's fifth in this little group coming in, and so that means that on the day there's going to be a change of leadership. Now the clock is significant. Look at this: 6:44, 45, 46. Visentini has blown it. The pink jersey's gone. Incredible. And here's the darling of the Italian crowds about to be besieged by reporters, and he's not too happy with all of them anyway. But interesting, as we get a close-up here, Pat, I want you to comment upon this. Physically, he may have looked shattered on the road, but I rather think it's more mental.
I would think, certainly looking at him there now, he doesn't look physically wrecked. He certainly looks, I think he's cracked mentally. He certainly doesn't look under any great stress. And I think he just accepted the fact that Roche was going to end up winning this Giro d'Italia, or going on to win the Giro d'Italia. And
so, Roberto Visentini disappointed, but for the Irish fans, a great day in Sabada. Sabada in Sabato. Stephen Roche has regained the pink jersey.
So what a turnaround. Roche back in the pink by a mere 5 seconds over the Swiss rider Tony Rominger, with the young Dutchman Eric Brunknig third at 38 seconds. The climber Robert Miller fourth at 1 minute 56 seconds. Flavio Gipponi fifth at 2:35. Marino Cerretta sixth at 3:07, and Visentini well down in seventh place, 3 minutes and 12 seconds back. And what an outcry that caused. Roche was accused by the Italian press of betraying his teammate Visentini. There were reports of spectators punching Roche during the next few days, and his Carrera team were said to be turning against the Irishman. But the Dubliner was unperturbed. He retained his lead through the next 3 days, and he's battling it out with the main contenders as we rejoin the race with Jimmy McGee and Pat McQuaid for stage 19. That was last Wednesday.
Already raced 150 kilometres since they left Trascoro Balneario this morning. Now they're in the middle of the last tough climb. In fact, it's a climb of about 20 kilometres to the 1,500-metre elevation finish at Madesimo. And the big boys have assembled in close company. Race leader Stephen Roche in the pink of leader. The green of Mountain King is worn by Robert Miller. Young Brookink is there as well. He wore the pink of leader early on in the tour. And with him as well is Roberto Visentini, who of course was also in the Maglia Rosa. So some big boys here, although up the road and away is Bernard the Frenchman. But the concentration of television is on these jerseys, and there's the cyclamen, which denotes the points leader in the Giro d'Italia, being worn by Johan van der Velde.
Yes, Jimmy, Bernard is away. He's about a minute or a minute and a half clear of this group, but he's well down overall. He's going to make no change to the overall classification, so the television cameras rightly concentrating on the pink jersey group of Stephen Roche.
Already on this 19th stage, they've climbed the famous Pass of San Marco. That was nearly 2,000 meters high and came at exactly halfway. But this is a torturous finish to it. And all of the day, we've had Visentini on Stephen Roche's wheel. Not assisting, perhaps not able to assist.
No, looking at him earlier on there, the situation is that he seems to be tired. He's certainly not trying to attack Stephen, and in actual fact, he's certainly not assisting him. But, I don't really think he's got much in his legs, to be honest with you.
Two Spaniards together here, Lejarreta and Pedro Munoz, two good climbers and two leaders of the respective teams. Munoz, of course, the leader of Fego here, and the other man, the leader of the Caja Rural team. So two Spaniards together, two renowned climbers, and they're bridging the gap between these four and the man up front, Bernard. We're looking now at Robert Miller jumping his long-time colleagues here, and what a man he is on the climbs, little Robert.
Yes, a great climber, Robert Miller, and one of the top riders in the world in actual fact. And this actually is a little bit dangerous for Stephen, because Miller is only 2 minutes down overall. So if Miller over the last couple of kilometres were to take a lot of time out of this group, he could put himself into a very strong position for the next couple of days.
Going back to that newsworthy Saturday, June the 6th, when Stephen Roche took back the Maglia Rosa from Visentini. A lot of controversy, a lot of friction since then. And do you think perhaps there might be some sort of pact between the English-speaking riders now?
I would think so, to some extent anyway. I mean, certainly Miller and Breukink are in with a chance of winning this race, and they would dearly love to win it. But Miller you remember, Jimmy, 2 years ago in the Tour of Spain, he held the lead for most of the race, and on the last day, all of the Spaniards ganged up, and he lost it. To Pedro Delgado, and Miller will remember that, and he would possibly liaise a little bit with Stephen, in that he wouldn't like to see the Italians ganging up and taking this race from Stephen.
Visentini there, sandwiched now between Van de Velde and Stephen Roche. Roberto Visentini wearing number 1, winner of the Giro last year, looking for the back-to-back victories as they go into the tunnel. And when they emerge, it's still the same. It's Stephen Roche in the famous pink jersey that denotes leadership of the second greatest cycle race in the world, the Tour of Italy, Giro d'Italia, second only to the Tour of France itself, and it started, in fact, only 6 years after the Tour de France. What a one to win.
Certainly, and hopefully he's going to hold on to this jersey for the rest of the week. It's certainly going to be a marvellous achievement.
Eric Breukink, this young Dutchman, back in the first week, he was in the pink for 3 days. Van de Velde won that controversial stage on Saturday, the one where Roche took back the pink. So Van de Velde is now in the points leader's jersey, all the good jerseys together. No, the television has not gone to the Frenchman. He's been virtually ignored. Jean-Francois Bernard, the 25-year-old. And we have Miller leading out Lejarreta and Pedro Munoz. Those are those three there, two Spaniards and a Scot. Behind them, it's Eric Breukink, the Dutchman, Stephen Roche, the Irishman, Roberto Visentini, the lone Italian up there. So he certainly has no support.
He's no support, no, but he's certainly getting the support from the crowds. If you watch as they go by the crowded areas, the Visentini, the Italian, that's getting all the cheers from the supporters.
Well, that's not surprising. Very understandable. They started at noon. They went through Bergamo. Lovely scenery. Cedrina, Lena, Mezzosola, Madonna delle Grazie. And this is where Italy juts into Switzerland. Today's finish at Madesimo is no more than 50 kilometers from San Moritz. So lovely part of the world.
I think, Jimmy, we might be getting the first shots of the race leader actually on the road. That is Jean-Francois Bernard coming through. No, it's the Miller group, Miller, Lejarreta and Munoz.
Very good climbers here, but Miller having an excellent Tour of Italy, 3 Ks to the finish. And the finish is at an elevation of 1,550 meters. There's the number 3, the pink of Roche, and again Visentini right on his wheel. Indeed, he's been so close to Roche all day, you think they were riding tandem. The cyclamen jersey is the points leader, that's Van de Velde. The other jersey there, the Panasonic, is Breukink. And at times when we've gone to Visentini, he looks struggling, actually.
Yes, the shot there of him there now, and he's trying to catch his breath a bit, and he looks to be struggling. We've Roche now. Breukink just attacked there. Roche went after him immediately, and Visentini actually didn't react.
Bernard, Jean-Francois Bernard, with Greg LeMond out injured after that unfortunate shooting accident, and Bernard Hinault retired. He'll almost certainly lead the Toshiba team in the Tour de France. But meantime, back to the man who's leading the Tour of Italy, Stephen Roche, Dundrum, County Dublin. Who would ever have believed that an Irishman would lead a major tour? This is his 14th day in the pink.
And we saw there, Jimmy, Visentini didn't have the strength to chase Roche when he got to that gap there, and it's Van de Velde that brought him up to the two leaders.
When we get back, there's Van de Velde again there, and the Gisjoli team, an Italian team. But you see the Panasonic jersey, young Brooking, perhaps the biggest danger to Roche, starting out only 33 seconds or thereabouts behind him on general classification. Now, if he doesn't do it in this Giro, he's certainly one to watch. There's Madesimo. As I say, no more than 50 k's from San Moritz, but Madesimo in Italy for the Giro, and shortly we shall get down there and pick up Jean-Francois Bernard, the 1987 second in Paris-Nice. Remember that great time trial he had up the Col d'Eze? And he'll lead, as we say, the Toshiba Look team, the ex-La Claire team in the Tour de France of 1987. And he really is a star of the future, and he's going to have his own little piece of stardom today as winning a stage, although virtually ignored as the battle goes on for general classification behind him. Also, who knows, the cyclamen is Johan van der Velde. That's the points in this race. Brookink in the Panasonic, now a very familiar uniform to us. The pink, the Maglia Rossa of Stephen Roche, as we come up to the finish line to pick up Bernard. No doubt about him. He's going to be the winner, and he's going to win it by a considerable margin, perhaps as much as a minute and a half, minute and 20 seconds or thereabouts. He's the winner, no doubt about that. There's Eric Brookink in our picture again, and he's one of the younger ones. Like Bernard, he's in fact 2 years younger.
Actually, he's having a little go there in the last kilometre now. He's trying to break away and get a handful of seconds. Remember, he's only 33 seconds down on Stephen, so I mean, every couple of seconds he can gain are going to be useful to him.
Eric Brookink. He won the stage from San Remo to San Romolo. That was stage 1.
We saw Van de Velde reacting after Brookink there. Visentini obviously didn't bother chasing Van de Velde, and Stephen had to come around him immediately and try and close up the gap.
Here we have this tandem thing again. It's quite remarkable. He's been on that back tyre all day.
It's true, yeah. He obviously, I think he's possibly accepted that Stephen is going to win this race, all right. But he's obviously not going to help him. In actual fact, and probably not even hinder him totally. But as I say, he's certainly not helping Stephen.
So there we have Van de Velde, one Dutchman following another there. In that particular picture, here comes Robert Miller going for second place. Absolutely sewing up that green jersey for 1987 in Italy, and Miller is second. The third man in is Lecoretta, the 30-year-old Spaniard, and they were at 1 minute 13, 1:13. Another 30-year-old here, Van de Velde, coming in to be fourth, and then it's Brookink, then it's Schapers, Roche is there as well, and Visentini. Pedro Munoz is ninth. So, the stage win for Bernard. Roche retains the pink, Miller retains the green. And what an exciting day in the Tour of Italy, and looking very good now, Pat, for Stephen Roche.
Yes, he's got a couple of days now to try and consolidate that lead. He's obviously feeling strong. We saw from the shots there on the climb that he's riding very well up the hills. There's nobody going to attack him or nobody going to leave him. I think Brookink possibly is the real danger, or even Miller if on Friday stage, which finishes up a 15-kilometre climb, Miller could take time out of him.
Nonetheless, Stephen is in an unfriendly situation. In fact, there's no doubt there's friction in the camp.
Oh, there's definitely friction in the camp. Stephen is on his own virtually in the Carrera team. He's got Eddie Sheeper certainly with him. But a lot of the other riders, the Italian riders, are siding with Visentini. Roche has that he's got to beat his own team in effect as well as the opposition. So it's certainly not easy for Stephen.
What about service, if that becomes a problem?
Service could be. It could be that the team mechanic, if Roche has a problem, the team mechanic could give him a slow change. They could do anything. But really, I think Carrera are going to have to take a decision. Roche is the man that can win the race, and if they start messing him around, then the whole team lose out.
Well, let's hope that it's all exaggerated. In fact, that Stephen does hang on for what will be one of the greatest achievements ever by an Irish sportsman, not just a cyclist. The winner of the stage, Jean-Francois Bernard. He's the Wednesday winner in 4 hours, 58 minutes and 20 seconds for 160 kilometres. Miller in green. But in the race that matters most of all, with 3 days to go, it's Stephen Roche of Ireland in the Maglia Rosa.
So the smiling Dublin man continuing to do everything right, still in front. Breitling now in second, 33 seconds in arrears. Miller up to third at 1:35. Lehereta up from 6th to 4th at 2:46. Gipondi down 1 place to 5th at 3:03, and Visentini up from 7th to 6th, but a further 12 seconds down at 3:24. So 3 days to go, and with reports of unease in the Carrera camp still flying around, it was as much a test of temperament as ability for Roche. Now there was one major test still to come, yesterday's long stage to an uphill finish. It was here that the Panasonic duo of Brookink and Miller were expected to make their move. We rejoin the race with Jimmy McGee and Pat McQuaid.
Today's stage from Como to Pila, 248 kilometres, about 155 miles. A day when magnificent scenery and an early flat race gives way to a brace of tortuous climbs. One at 190 kilometres, the Col d'Io, brings the race to 1,640 metres. Then there's about 30 kilometres of relative breather before the final ascent to Pila and the stage finish at 1,792 metres. And we're on that final ascent now, and Stephen Roche is with the leading group and having a great day. Indeed has been fragmented at this stage, stretching right back down the climb. Not unexpected, really.
No, this second group, which is about 30 seconds behind the leaders, has Phil Anderson and Peter Winnan, the two Panasonics in it.
Spectacular stuff indeed. A beautiful area around Como, around Lake Como, from where it began. But
At the front of the group, Lageretta, Robert Miller, having a very, very good ride in this Tour of Italy. Roche with the hat, and Visentini. Notice Roche also with the hat pointing backwards. That is actually to keep the sun from the back of his neck. It's obviously very hot now, the conditions now.
there's confirmation of the men there. Roche, Brookink, Miller, Lehereta, Ciapponi, Visentini and Van D. 3 Italians, a Spaniard, a Scot, a Dutchman and an Irishman. Robert Miller in the green, the mountain leader. Lehereta there, the 1982 Spanish Tour winner. And Eddie Shapers has been around a long time. There's a lot of miles in those legs, but a lot of experience in that head. A lot of experience too with Lehereta and Robert Miller and Stephen Roche. Visentini, who wore the pink, and Stephen has a look. Yes, he's there. He hasn't been far away from that wheel of Stephen's. But interestingly enough, whenever we've seen him since last Saturday, he has very seldom done any of the work.
That's true. He's certainly not doing anything to help Stevens win in this event, but by the same token, he's not hindering his performance.
There he is, Roberto Visentini. Comes from a rich background, in fact, and I don't think too many professional cyclists have come from that sort of background that Visentini has. He has the reputation of being a playboy. I don't know if it's well-founded or not, but he certainly won the Giro last year, but it's doubtful if he's going to do it this time. The man in the yellow and black there, that's the Del Tongo uniform, and that's Ciapponi, Flavio Ciapponi. Stephen Roche got a nice haircut this week too. Robert Miller could do with one. And 9 kilometres to go. 9 kilometres then. They're about at a place called Paralots at the moment. Robert Miller, very strong. There's Brookink, just top left of your picture. What a very fine Giro he's had. Starting out today in second position on general classification. He'll want to stay in touch as well. So the big boys are all up there. The 3 men on GC and the 1986 winner.
Yes, they're all there, and this is really the last opportunity really anybody has to take over the race lead, because with tomorrow's stage being a time trial, a 20-mile time trial, Roche would be nearly favourite to win the time trial in actual fact, and certainly with a pink jersey on his back, the motivation will be to win it. And like the last time trial, Roche will have to try and forget and try and get that out of his mind and prove that that time trial was a total fluke, that he was obviously suffering from the injury of the crash. And I think tomorrow's time trial, Roche will go out and show that he is one of the best time trialists in the world.
Well, back to the chasing group, among them Phil Anderson, Peter Vinnan, Pozzi, Vandelli and Stephen back again.
Yeah, Stephen there having a bit of food, a little dextrosol tablet, glucose tablet there taken down to give him some energy over this last couple of kilometres.
Robert Miller, I think, behind Pat in the car over that. Roche, Brookink, Miller, Lacaretta, Gipponi, Visentini, Shapers. And here we have the man in the Mario Rosa, Stephen Roche from Dundrum, County Dublin, Ireland. Robert Miller, the little Glaswegian. Visentini. Now, Director Sportif talking to Visentini.
Talking to Visentini there, and the pace actually has been stepped up a little bit, I notice, as we're going along. Sheepers is doing a marvellous ride here for Roche today now, and he's, you know, he's probably just about giving us all now, and I think that's it. Roche will probably now take over, and Sheepers will probably go back now even and possibly finish in the second group, but he has done a marvellous job up to now, and Roche can be very grateful for what he has done.
What you call friend and faithful servant. So Stephen Roche, and back behind, there's some problems there behind. Visentini looks in trouble, Brookink looks in trouble.
Yes, it looks certainly there's something has happened here. The Carrera car, which was going alongside, has stopped. He's going back, and it looks like possibly Visentini would be in a bit of trouble there.
Yeah, he's the one who's missing. Yeah, there he is. Came down, fell, I don't know how. No, certainly nobody brought him down. Don't know what the accident, the cause of it. But down he went anyway, and now he's trying to regain it again. But he's had a lot of struggles. There's some statistics on them. Number 6 in general classification, starting out the day at 3:24. The bottom line is his age, 30 years. Roberto Visentini.
I think, Jimmy, what possibly happened there is Sheepers was at the front and just doing more or less his last stint, and he'd raised the pace a bit before he moved over to allow Roche to take over. Roche then went up to the front, and obviously having been reasonably fresh, having sat on Sheepers' wheel at a nice steady pace for so long, Roche upped the speed, and suddenly the group started to split up a bit. Visentini possibly went down to try and get to his gear lever to change up the gear and maybe caused himself to fall somewhere or other, but certainly he was the only one to fall, and I would imagine it was his own fault. We can see now Roche definitely screaming along now. It looks to be only 3 riders there, Roche, Miller and Lajaretta, which would mean that Brookink possibly hasn't been able to stay the pace now.
No, that's for sure. We can confirm that. Brookink cannot stay the pace, nor indeed can Visentini there. Eddie Shapers has done his job, wouldn't be expected to. So there are 3. 180 riders began the Giro d'Italia in 1987. It's the second last day as they go for stage win at 3 of them are left.
Some interesting shots here from the Italian director here, while the helicopter's concentrating on Visentini, who is now more or less dropped, trying to chase to get back on. They also have, they're showing shots of Roche actually driving along at the front group.
Eric Brookink. In the middle, Shapers, and the third man in this trio is Flavio Gipponi.
And now we get an indication of the 3 leaders, how far they are, and they're certainly opening up a good gap now. 30-40 seconds now the gap is now to the 3 leaders. Working well together, Lajaretta and Roche, with Miller sitting there, and really Miller has no option but to sit there because his teammate is second overall, and Miller really cannot take advantage of that, so Miller just sits there, lets Lajaretta and Roche do the work. And Lajaretta has a lot to gain too, because he could move up in the overall classification if he finishes well up today. Bye.
Stephen Roche in the Carrera team. Last year, 1986, one to forget for him because of that injury, that leg problem. Then he had that surgery. Remember, he went back and had it last October, was it November in 1986, hoping that all would be well, and obviously it is. He has won Tour of Valencia this year. He won Tour of Romani again. Only a puncture probably deprived him of Paris-Nice, which he won away back in 1981. And he's really had a very fine season. The business in Liège, Bastogne-Liège, when he and Kukilian were caught out by Moreno, Argentine, the world champion, might have shattered his morale, but on the contrary, he jumped back and absolutely has been since then. So it's very much a brilliant year for Stephen.
Certainly is, and interesting also to note, Jimmy, that 2 years ago, Stephen was ranked number 5 in the world in the computer, and then because of his injury and because he was on and off the bike and so forth last year, he actually dropped down to number 43 last winter. The latest computer rankings, which came out just before this event started, had Stephen right back up at number 6. So he's certainly, and this event is going to help him again, so he'll certainly be back up into the top 3 or 4 in the world in the computer rankings. Also, winning this event should put him in the lead in the Perno competition.
Which reminds us to give you the Perno winner of the Giro d'Italia gets 140 points, second 125, third 110, and right down 12 deep to 45 points for 12th place. Spania. The Tour de France is 15 deep with 180 to the winner, but only the Tour de France carries more points than this. Tour of Spain, Tour of Italy 140, World Championship in Paris-Roubaix 110 for the winner. So that gives you an idea of the importance of this race.
Shot of Visentini here now. He's now gone back past the third group on the road. The third group, which had Jean-Francois Bernard, the winner of that stage a couple of days ago, and Steve Bauer just out the back of it also. We saw a glimpse of there as we're going through. And Visentini has now gone out the back of that. So Visentini obviously in trouble, but watching how he's holding the handlebars, I think his right hand is obviously hurting him because he doesn't seem to be holding handlebars too well on the right-hand side.
Yeah, and of course he'll make the most of it. He's a fine actor as well. His nearest challenger, who on the road now, is Miller, to gain anything of consequence on GC.
That's true now. Roche, just as I said, has to keep the pace up, keep it nice and steady, and keep it high enough that Miller doesn't sort of feel strong and decide to try and break away. So nice shots there of Vincente Toriano, the organizer there, obviously a happy man. Even though this event in Italy is having a lot of controversy over the Roche Visentini affair, it's probably bringing the crowds onto the roadside, so as organizer he's quite happy, and the event has gone very well for him.
No such thing as bad publicity, they say, and this has certainly got its share in a country that's mad on its sport, whatever, football, the old calcio, or the cycling, or indeed whatever. 3 or 4 daily all sports papers in Italy, live television of the Giro every day, so there can't be a man, woman or child in the country of Italy who isn't aware of the Giro d'Italia, nor aware of the fact that a 27-year-old Irishman is leading their own favourite sons, and leading them too in a Carrera, an Italian-based team.
That's true, and it's interesting actually. The best placed Italian, in actual fact, is only 5th overall, so the Italians themselves are probably not too happy over the fact that these foreigners are coming in and taking the spoils.
And then Robert Miller.
Talking about the crowds and the support, I see as we're watching these going through these crowds, they're getting a lot of support from the Italian fans, and Miller has gone. Miller has jumped away at 500 metres to go.
Not an Italian in sight, but great support, and I think that, and not all the criticism, speaks volumes for the Italian people. They love this sport. Look at that. No evidence of any animosity there.
No, they know that Visentini's gone. They know the group that's coming up. They know there are 3 non-Italians, and they're giving him every bit of support. So Miller taking the stage.
There he is, 7 hours, 22 minutes and 1 second. Stephen Roche is second at 3 seconds. Lecoretta is third. Scotland, Ireland, Spain. Panasonic, Carrera, Pajarua. Classification with no change in jerseys. The Maglia Rosa is going to be worn by Roche on the last day. The Maglia Verde is going to be worn by Robert Miller. And Miller is also going to be...
West German from the Roland Scala team, a 32-year-old, has posted the best time, 44:37, 44 minutes and 37 seconds. It's a marvelous time, and it survived most of the day. Johan van der Velde is the man we're looking at. After we check the general classification, which shows an Irishman on top, a Scot at 127, a Dutchman in 3rd place, a Spaniard 4th, an Italian 5th, and another Italian 6th. Johan van der Velde, 1 week ago, won that controversial stage to Sabada, the one when Stephen Roche resumed leadership of Giro d'Italia, the 70th Giro. Away goes Van de Velde.
Roberto Visentini ha lasciato questa mattina la
And
carovana del Giro.
into a
A
picture
5
appears
chilometri
Roberto
dalla conclusione della tappa di ieri è
Visentini,
rimasto
the
coinvolto
man
in
from
una
whom
caduta e
Roche took it.
riportato alla
Why is he
frattura
in his
dello
casuals? Well,
scafoide
just
del
peep on his right-hand
polso
side,
destro.
and there's a plaster on his right
Vuoi
arm. In fact, in that
riepilogare come è
fall
accaduto
that you may have seen earlier
l'incidente?
on in our broadcast, in fact, he broke his wrist. It's reported to have broken his wrist, but certainly his arm, lower arm, is in plaster. Now, here is the moment that mattered. There's Visentini leading in yesterday's stage, and he seemed to go into the side. Well, just watch it now and see if we can see clearly what happened to him. It was at the moment, in fact, when Eddie Schapers had done so much work for Stephen Roche. Roche looked at him and thanked his teammate and went off for personal glory to consolidate his position in the Giro. But behind, it was Visentini in trouble. There's a reminder of the people who won stages. Argentine 3, Rosola 3, 2 by Van de Velde, whom we saw a moment ago starting his TT. Visentini won the prologue, and you go right down along them there. Not forgetting Roche, who of course won the descent of the Poggio. In Oasta and finishing at St. Vincent, a gambling resort. Marco Giovanetti, a reminder too of how the teams have done, no doubt about it. The best team of 1986 is the best team in the 1987 Giro. The team of Roche, Visentini, and that great sprinter Guido Bontempi. Carrera, the best team, and Roche is on his way in the time trial. It should be really a celebration. Jerseys shouldn't swap bodies today, and yet such is the undercurrent in this Giro, such the prestige of the race, that the time trial might afford the opportunity for those with designs on spoiling Roche's greatest ever day. Roche started on Iesta in the Piazza Arco di Agosto there. Still more presentations to be made to the Atala of Mega Team, who have performed well in the... His time inferior to Turo's. Great time trial by Turo. Really putting it up to Roche for the time trial stage. But in the most important item of all, the Giro d'Italia, the overall, the GC, Roche is on his way to the victory podium. Winner of the Tour of Spain a few years ago, La Coretta. He won the Vuelta de España in 1982 and was fifth in the Giro 2 years ago. On the road, Brookink and Roche. Turo, who's finished, Brookink, who's on the road, are the only two who can deprive Roche now of a stage victory. And it looks as though nobody is going to deny him, bar fate, the Giro d'Italia. Back to the great names, Merckx 5 times, Coppi 5 times, Hino 3 times, Bartelli 3 times, Anquetil, Gimondi, Saronni. Last year Visentini, and now it's 2.5 miles, 4 kilometers to go. Is it to be Stephen Roche? Of Italy, coming in from the Del Tonga team, 10th best time of the time trial. 175, 150, and the torture is almost over for yet another rider. Good crowds out, nice encouragement. And Eric Brookink can grimace, grin, smile, and then congratulate himself. He's fourth best on the day at 45.26. 45.26. Averaging 42.25 k's an hour. About to win the Giro d'Italia. But can he make it the double? Can he take the final stage? Remember, he started off this Giro by winning the descent of the Poggio, that dangerous, demanding descent. He's finishing on an ascent, a time trial. He's now 34 seconds to go to Turo. He's within sight of the finish, 125 meters. Roche has won the Giro, but can Roche also win the last stage and really cap the performance? He's going to do it, you know. He's going to do it. Stephen Roche looks like winning the stage. He's won the stage, 44.23. Superb, marvelous performance by Stephen Roche. What a way to win. What a way to top it off. Stephen Roche Dublino, the 28th of the 11th, 59, his birthday. He's won it. Oh, marvellous day for Roche, a marvellous finish to a great 3 weeks of it. The demands were put upon him. Off and on the bike, he was equal to all of them. Yes, Stephen Roche has won the stage and he's won the Giro. And those aspirations of Shea Elliott a quarter of a century ago, establishing a new tradition carried on by Kelly and Roche, the dream of leading, maybe even winning a famous tour, is now a reality. An Irishman has won a major world tour for the first time. Stephen Roche, magnificent. Dietrich Thurau had time, as I said, to wash and change and get into civvies. He saw his stage win go. Des Carl talked to Stephen Roche. Robert Miller, he's had a tough week since last Saturday, that's for sure. But goodness me, he stood up to it magnificently.
You're a very relieved man because you were under intense pressure over the last few days.
Well, I was really, but doing what I did yesterday, getting Brookling far behind me, and knowing that Miller was 130 behind me, it made me much more relieved for this morning. Like last night, and I was able to talk and I was able to decontract a little, and I was able to start the stage today much more decontracted than I have been the last week or so. And so I think it helped me really towards winning the stage also, because I hadn't really got to win the stage, but even though I wanted to win the stage, but I wasn't kind of mentally blocked to win the stage.
But prior to that, you were under incredible pressure because following your breaking away from Visentini, the crowds here, the media, everyone turned against you. Can you tell us, first of all, just how bad was it with the crowds?
Well, it's difficult to really say how bad it was, but one thing possibly sure is, after coming through this tour of Italy, I'll probably become a better Catholic, because I don't want to go to hell, because after coming through what I've come through, it was like coming through hell. It's really bad.
Is it true they were punching and spitting at you?
Yeah, and in the climbs, the climbs we go much slower than we do on the flat, and the crowds are kind of all over the road. It's like going through a tunnel. And I'm always in the front, so they were kind of punching in at me, and I was kind of ducking away. I was doing a really Barry McGuigan job, and Visentini was being pushed, but I got 2 or 3 in the face and got a few in the back, and I was really, I was really in a bad way, nervously in the last 2 days now. I've been really bad. It's really got to me, So doing what I did yesterday really relieved me for today.
And within the Carrera team, an Italian team, you're really relying on 1 or 2 men to give you support and even talk to you for some days.
Well, in all fairness now, after the day of the episode, things started getting better again straight away. And for the last 3 or 4 days now, I had the whole support of the whole team, except Visentini, of course. And of course, Skipper's was his super himself. He was in the mountains with me every day, and the other riders in the flat, I count on every one of them. They're possibly, after our little episode, they possibly even rode better for me than they were before. So it helped me an awful lot, and they were, there's must say, it was a great.